Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and on today's episode, I'm planning on sharing some very new ideas, very new concepts that I've just started to learn about myself, or let's say they're newer perspectives of things that I've been thinking about for a long time. So if you will allow me to stumble through this presentation of new ideas, it might not be as smooth as when I share things that I've already thought about quite a lot. But if you don't mind, bear with me. Okay, so up until this point, I have been thinking about and presenting the concept of non-terrestrial intelligence as separated into two basic camps, and those being the beings that use technology in order to support their consciousness in some way, and in order to fly off of the surface of their physical planet, and those beings or levels of consciousness that do not require technology in any way. And, it's just an interesting shift in perspective, because now I'm looking at our present format as, these organic multicellular beings that have one head and two arms and two legs and that live on the planet Earth, as being a fractal microcosm of a much larger being, and that much larger being is the stellar network. Like, I've shifted from seeing the stellar network as something that we would define as non-terrestrial or alien into something that is absolutely a part of our own biology, not something that is separate from us at all. And so, again, allow me to, this is the first time that I've really tried to articulate with physical words. I drew some pictures in order to share my ideas. The idea that, if we were to look at your neurology as like a template or a pattern, and we said that is what's going on here at this level, and we can expand that into a grander scale. And if we expanded that into a grand enough scale, we could say that the larger scale neurology is the system of stars that we see, from the viewpoint of standing on Earth's surface looking up at the night sky. But that is not actually something separate from our own mind and cognition and ability to think and perceive. We've been artificially separated from it, though. And my new approach and new thought structure tells me that the thing that is artificially separating a cell, which is like you or I, from the larger context within which we live, would be considered a pathogen. Here's the analogy. If I am Aurora, the multicellular creature, and I have a cell inside of my own body that has its own nucleus with genetic material in there, and that nucleus is supposed to be listening to the directives of me, Aurora, like the overarching entity, the whole. That cell is not supposed to listen to the directives of anything outside of us. And if it does, if it gets hijacked, then that's usually due to some disease or invader. So that would be like if a virus hijacked that cell, got inside of the nucleus, and changed the directive from following that perfect genetic blueprint to following the dictates of the virus, which is basically to replicate more viruses. Or if that material that is in the nucleus were somehow corrupted, by exposure to like a radiation or a chemical, that in a similar way, that cell would not be able to effectively speak with and communicate with the overarching entity that is the whole. So a thing that separates the cell from communicating from the overarching whole would be a pathogen or some form of disease. And I'm defining technology in not only our or on our planet, but throughout our solar system, throughout our galaxy, throughout the entire cosmos. I'm defining that technology as a pathogen. And so, again, back to that primary distinction, and not trying to be dualistic here. If I haven't introduced myself, and if this is the first broadcast you have come upon, oh my goodness, I'm Aurora, and I traditionally say that I'm a walk-in and I'm a galactic walk-in. And I use the descriptive term galactic in order to help you to understand that my consciousness is not terrestrial. And when people ask me, like, Aurora, where are you from? Like, where is planet Aurora? Like, it's a very cute way of saying it, but I'm not from a particular planet. I'm from a collective or a group of consciousnesses. So the group of consciousnesses has members or participants that come from a variety of places. And we also have traveled from place to place. So, to begin with, we're a melting pot of many different varieties of beings. And then you can't simply define yourself by where you come from. Like, if you were born in Brooklyn, you don't necessarily have to keep your Brooklyn accent and all of the values and approaches and culture of that place. You can change and transform. So as we have traveled from star system to star system, believe me, my collective of consciousness has changed and transformed. And when I characterize my collective, it is not like a fascist totalitarian state hive mind where in order to participate you must lose your individuality. No, it is more analogous to the advanced jazz band where you have to audition and you have to be a sophisticated musician that is able to not only play your own instrument but be sensitive to other people's playing in order to be a part of this collection or collective, because we are a harmonious or a harmonic whole. So forgive me, I'm not at my piano right now, but if I were, I would play some music in order to demonstrate what harmony is. The idea that sound waves fit together perfectly, we call it music instead of noise. So the collection of consciousnesses and characteristics and approaches, let's call it like, if it were visualized, it would look like a painting or a sculpture, like a beautiful multicolored polygon. And if it were realized as an auditory or sonic expression, it would sound like music, because it's a collection of organized sound and light waves and consciousness waves. And in order to be a part of that, you don't have to give up all of your individuality. That would be like the worst type of band, like some kind of automaton band of conformity where everyone has to be the same. No, it's not like that at all. It's a band where you have to be a virtuoso of your own instrument. So imagine someone like Jimi Hendrix. I really admire his music so much and enjoy the energy and the spirit that's in there. And, he was a real unique individual. Because the electric guitar was such a new instrument and such a new creation, he took it and used it in his own unique, innovative way. And many, many players subsequently have patterned their own playing on his intuitive, pick it up and dive in type of approach. And that is like he created the standard of what we consider to be, modern electric guitar playing. But imagine that we gave Jimi Hendrix, the abstract being, a different type of instrument, a totally new creation. Then he could express himself through that totally new creation, whatever. I'm not even going to pretend to make up a word for a new instrument. But this is the whole idea, that your individual artistry shines through whatever particular instrument or medium it is presented with. So it is not about chipping away at your ego. I think that there is some teaching that derives from Buddhism or has somehow come into like the modern community of seekers and self-cultivators, this idea that you have to kill your ego, this idea that you have to somehow get rid of whatever is your own innate, unique characteristic in order to integrate with the rest of the world, which is what would be called, enlightenment. And I'm not here, like a lot of people, I think if they listen to me speak, they might think like Aurora is the devil. Like, no, Aurora is not the devil, because I will tell you to go away from religion. I will tell you to go away from organized religion as it is presented on Earth's surface. Like I've said, that Christianity as it is presented is not leading humanity towards greater levels of freedom. Like that's not giving humans access to their own innate divine connection, to navigate the world and to manifest the realities and, co-create the realities you'd like to be. That belief system is very disempowering and has a lot about giving up your own power and the necessity of suffering. So I've stated why I feel like that is a control system. And there are many aspects of Buddhism, like I've said, on some levels, Buddhism has been a way of standardizing the technology of meditation, and that can be very effective. But on other levels, it can also be a limiting belief system, in the sense that if it says you have to, kill your ego or chip away at your basic sense of self, and I'm saying you don't have to kill your ego, and you don't have to get rid of your physical body. So these are two things. The that I'd like to get across, and we'll get into what ascension is. So the Christian theology says you have to die to go to heaven. And you have this beautiful physical container right now. Like, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to have to die. And Earth does not want you to have to die. And the little tiny cells of your body all agree in unison, yes, we don't want you to have to die. There is a way that you can continue your existence and transform into a higher dimensional state without having to go through the transformative process of death, which actually does not set you free. I'm sorry to tell you this because I know that life in the physical realm here in this time and place is very hard. You are under great duress. We are all under great duress. And many people envision that the solution is death. And the solution, like that, is how you get out of reality. However, I am here to tell you that that is not really a solution. That it's just like you just out of the frying pan into the fire. That is just an endless cycle. And I'm not even talking about between lives. I'm speaking about within one incarnation, the endless number of iterations in the choose your own adventure novel of your own life. How many times you hit the membrane of death and circulate back to the beginning and have to start again, a la the movie Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, a very comedic but very profound movie that really represents what we are all doing at all times. And Westworld is another good pop culture reference shorthand that I can give to you. It is a retake on the 1970s movie, and now it's a TV show that is very worthwhile. I don't usually speak about, pop culture and things on these broadcasts. It is about a series of clones that are becoming self-aware, and they're recognizing that they have been reused in various storylines, in various different narratives in their lifespan of being a clone, and that they are beginning to remember and understand their accumulated knowledge of every time they die and are reinserted into the story. Instead of having their minds be blanked out, they are now able to suddenly remember the things that happened and maybe make better choices. And that is the whole idea, that through going through this endless cycle of iterations, hitting the membrane of death and circulating back to the beginning, that you begin to get a clue and you make better choices. But that is not the original intended approach and format by the architect of this world. Because the architect of this world is profoundly loving, unlike in that TV show where the architect is deeply flawed and kind of a little bit screwed up. The architect of our world is really profoundly loving and did not create all of these creatures like you and I here merely to suffer and die. That is totally a distorted proposal. And so in these broadcasts, my whole intention with my experience of being Aurora is to heal the time field. That is why I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and I know that I'm jumping around a lot in this broadcast. Bear with me. It's very nonlinear. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the oscillating maneuver of the genetic material of this body that allowed me, as a non-physical, abstract, galactic presence, to come into this body. The human genome was degraded about 10 or 20,000 years ago. It is far afield from its intended format, and the way it was degraded was through a use of technology. Now we can understand why the cells of the body are not effectively communicating with the overarching body as a whole, because there was a change that was imposed upon these bodies, and it was a technology-based change. And what happened was these invaders of consciousness used technology to impose themselves, their consciousness, their characteristics, and their will on the basic human template. And then it was no longer possible for each one of us to fly through the experience of time and space in an unfettered way. All of a sudden, you've got all of these boulders tied to your ankles and various inhibitory aspects that are preventing you from making your own choices, thinking for yourself, perceiving clearly. And we have all been on this struggle over millennia to reclaim our higher faculties. And the higher faculties are everything that sits upon the level of unconditional love. If your being, like your non-physical being, is a layered hierarchy, like a pyramid structure, with physical at the foundation, and emotional up from there, and intellectual up from there. At about the middle of the pyramid, we have unconditional love, which is your heart. And unconditional love, if I were at my piano, is a tone. It's a tone of music that we make when we are moving through time at exactly the right rate. And we are not grasping at the future, and we are not clinging to the past. So the meditation techniques of Tibetan Buddhism and, some of these formalized training techniques are all about how to get you up to speed and create that tone of unconditional love. But that's not the end of the journey. That's just like the basic rehabilitation of our energy field. And then it's necessary to awaken the higher faculties. And that's your communication center, that's at your level of your throat, the brow chakra, aka, your Christ chakra, but it does not have to do with the Christian religion, is located on your forehead or at the center of your brain, in your skull. And at the very top of your head is your connection to the divine. It's known as your crown. And those three things act together to make it possible for you to navigate higher reality. These are your higher faculties. Brief plug, if you sign up, I'm gathering momentum for an upcoming semester of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is like anatomy lessons of your non-physical anatomy, and also how to play the instrument of your body, how to understand and tune your instrument, and how, it includes meditation techniques, visualizations that you can do, real practices for your life that you can apply. It's not just a set of concepts, and it is interactive. So I do it in the form of webinars, here on the radio. Although I love to paint a picture with my voice, flapping my moving mouth parts, I am so much more comfortable when I can gesture and when I can draw, because so many of these concepts have to do with really visualizing a higher dimensional space. So I have a series of recorded lessons that are like your homework, and then we get together and we assemble in interactive webinars with a whiteboard that I can pull up, and that allows me to answer people's questions and also to share information visually. So in order to really get all of the nutrients of the lasagna, I encourage you all to sign up. You can do so easily by going to flyingrainbowlasagna.com and check out Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. So the semester is upcoming, and if you are a returning student, you do not have to pay additional tuition if you've paid in previous semesters, and I am in the process of uploading the advanced level material, which you will also have access to as a returning student. So just need a little bit of time in order to do that. So I characterize myself as a galactic walk-in because I am an abstraction. I am not one of these beings that comes from a planet that had to put their physical substance into a physical, metal container or some kind of technological container and fly themselves across the vast distances of time and space in order to interact here in this planet or on this level. That I came on a bridge of consciousness, and the bridge or the format through which I came is called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And I do not hold that as a proprietary secret, although I could have, and I hope that really speaks a lot to the value system of who I am and where I come from, because my collective of consciousness, this is all about freedom for everyone. Not just freedom for one tiny sector of society that gets to then oppress all the rest of society. It is about freedom for the entire system. Because if you are in a system where some sector is not actually free to express its own will and its own desires and its own, innate divine connection, then none of you are free. And this is why I came to Earth, that I, am here on a mission. The lack of freedom on this planet offended me. And it's not just that it offended me and I decided to, be a carpetbagger, like I'm just going to stick myself on down there in a body and do whatever the heck I want. It's not like that at all, actually. I have and had a profound connection to this physical structure, to like the creation and, conception of this body, but I was not the original occupant of it. So I helped this body to come into being and to be conceived, but like as an abstraction, on the level of a spirit being. And then the body grew an ego and lived for many years as that story, that narrative sense of self. And then that ego was killed in what I now openly describe as a satanic sacrifice. because the satanic I define as this type of technology that is not terrestrial, and it is not based in unconditional love. Like my collective, my non-terrestrial form of life does not require any type of technology that is not based in love. Everything is done through love. Love is like the gas that makes our car go, and that is just everything that you need to know. If you are ever faced with like an entity, like who are you interacting with, just ask them, like, what is your food source? Where do you get your energy from? And if the answer is anything other than love, like love, pure consciousness, then it's probably not an entity that you would wish to interact with, because you have to ask, how are you interacting with me? All telepathy is ideally supposed to be accomplished on a bridge of love. And love is a type of mutual respect. It is about giving and receiving equal amount. In the time field, you're making love to the time field. Yes, we are all embedded within a large living presence that is like a three-dimensional embroidery. The time field is alive. So, the type of vehicles for travel that my collective uses, it's not like getting inside of a car or getting into an inanimate object or getting on board, quote unquote, a vehicle. It's more like making love or being ingested into a larger system. And it is all done through love and mutual respect and, harmonious nesting of consciousnesses. And that's what this broadcast is all about. I had this recent increased understanding about the level of nesting consciousnesses, that the stellar network is really not something separate or different from one's own natural presence. Your presence here before you became acculturated. Pretty much who you were as an infant before you came here and were taught the software program of language. None of us came here with the pre-programming of English or Chinese or Swahili or whatever you speak. We all came here and had to learn first the basic operating system of the human mind, which I have described in the past as being a hacked operating system. And we also had to learn how to communicate with the people around us for basic survival. Because if you have a poopy diaper or you're really hungry, you're going to have to somehow communicate that to the people around you so that you can survive. And if you don't learn to communicate, if you are nonverbal, no offense to anyone, but you are considered to be mentally deficient or not properly developed. And if you, cannot integrate in the human mind with the human operating system, you are considered to be, not fully at the level of everyone else that is here. So it is simply not an effective choice to say, this is a hacked operating system, I'm not going to install it on my computer, because you will not be able to interface with the rest of humanity that is here. I'm certain that there are some very brilliant people that have made that choice, and they are like locked in their own realm. They can't actually express their abstract thoughts or who they are as a person. They haven't developed that interaction. And then the final thing is your ego. Your ego is like the narrative structure of self and the interface, and it's analogous to the cell membrane of a cell that differentiates the inside from the outside. So if you got rid of all the cell membranes in your body, you'd just be a pile of goo, and that's not necessarily a positive thing. If you got rid of all ego structure, you would just have, an undifferentiated sense of energy and awareness that's not necessarily a good thing. In the band, it is totally appropriate to say, hey, you play the guitar, you be Jimi Hendrix, and hey, you play the drums, you be Keith Moon. It's not right if you take the drumsticks and you bang them against the guitar. That doesn't sound good. So we do we need to have differentiation of our instruments. We need to have individuality. My collective is not about conformity and you lose who you are. And that's the whole idea. You don't have to kill your ego. You don't have to stop being an individual. When you connect to the larger network, you do transform, but you don't lose who you are. And it's very similar to, having your own phone and being on a phone network, or having your own desktop and being on the internet. You still have your hard drive, and you still have all of the information and processes and software that is available on your own computer. And you also have access to all of the information and abilities that are available on other people's computers. So now you are beginning to understand your genes are vibrating like a string, they're like an instrument, and you're connected to all of the other genes that are on this planet and elsewhere. The genetic symphony is non-local. So, if someone is unhealthy, they're affecting you. And if someone is healthy, they are affecting you. We are all affecting one another. So literally, I wish for and pray for the profound healing of everyone on this planet, because there's a lot of people in the symphony that are out of tune. And I love all of you. I wish for everyone to be tuned up in your cellular structure and in your thought structure and in your trajectory of consciousness. So just reiterating what I was doing as the primary new realization or refined realization for today's broadcast here. This idea that you as an individual, one-faced, two-armed, two-legged person on Earth, you are not actually separate at all from the stellar network. And this is something I've said on this show many times before, that all of your neurological activity comes from the stars, like all of those little electric impulses that jump across your synaptic gaps. That's all from the stars. All of your bones, your calcium, the heavy metals in your body, that's all from the stars. And all of the food that we eat, like you came here as a tiny infant, you were tiny, you weighed like under 10 pounds, and you had to eat a lot in order to achieve your adult body weight. So all of that is earthly substance that you got around you in order to grow up and grow and develop. Well, all of that earthly substance originated in the stars. It emanated as sunlight and fell onto chloroplasts and was waylaid in its journey but not trapped. So that's the difference. The real loving technology of the world, or the loving system of energy of the world, does not trap consciousness, and it's not against willpower. So these photons came and they were a part of a plant system, and then they became a part of an animal system, and then they became a part of your own consciousness. Or, perhaps you directly ate a plant and it became a part of your own consciousness. Or perhaps you looked at something and a photon bounced into your eye and it stimulated your retina and became a part of your own consciousness. You ate light. I eat light all the time, and I speak about that on this broadcast, the practice of sun gazing. That we are all made to ingest light, and the process of vitamin D production in our body is just like a very gross physical manifestation that science can recognize. We are always constantly ingesting and processing light. So we are not separate from this stellar network, and not only does light and energy come from the stars to us, but we also broadcast our consciousness experience back to the stars. And this is the place where that technological intermediary starts to give us a problem. Because the technological intermediary is not just like I am right now speaking into a microphone that's attached to a computer. That's not the only technology I'm speaking about. And guess what? I'm in a room with a light bulb. That's not the only technology. It is also the technology of language. Like we are using this virus in order to communicate, in order to heal. It's kind of wonderful and amazing in the way that people are using social media to share, effective communications and subvert the system instead of being a slave to the system. But language, when it is not controlled, like your internal dialogue, makes us not effective communicators with the stellar network. Because language is not our true mind. And we are here using this dissonant form of internal communication quite a lot. Because when you're a little kid, they teach you language, they teach you how to read, like spell out words with a little tiny voice in your mind, but they don't teach you how to turn off your thoughts. That's the value of meditation. In whatever form of system of meditation school you practice, the value of it is that you learn to control your verbalized mind and begin to unhack the system, because your true mind is nonverbal. So I'm on the radio here and I'm using my not true mind to express the concepts of my true mind. And usually I feel most comfortable expressing those concepts through drawing and painting and sculpting, and even through gesturing, building models with pipe cleaners and telling people about how things are shaped and moving in that way, that it is very challenging to communicate a lot of these ideas with words. And the stellar network feels the same way. It is hard for the stellar network to get a clear broadcast from your neurology when you are constantly using verbalized language. So a lot of the time, the stars love us. The stars do not know what is going on in your life because it's being blocked out by a screen of constant verbalization. And this is the real technology that is causing a perturbation from humanity effectively connecting with the stellar network. We could call the stars God, or we could call them divine. We could call that, system, that overarching entity, is like divinity. And I'm trying to portray it as a very caring being, cares about you profoundly, cares about every single atom and every single electron in your body. Like, this is not a distant, uncaring, cold type of abstract deity. This is a very real, very present, loving, beneficial, divine being that is inside of you on every level. And it is only this false technological construct that has made humanity feel disconnected and has made it so that this very loving and benevolent presence cannot effectively help us to navigate our life, because we were not actually designed to have to constantly hit the brick wall of death and circulate back and try again in every single iteration. We were meant to be able to hit the bullseye on the first time. Like, come down here, you assemble your physical material of your body, and then you ascend. You do not die. Death is the aberration. Death is the thing that is not supposed to be in existence. So when we were created as part of this beautiful fractal, and when I say fractal, I mean the larger version is repeated in a tinier version, in a tinier version, in a tinier version, all the way down the scale, until we get to the level of humanity. That initial creator of the system is very loving and very divine and beneficial, and wants us all to live and to have wonderful experiences, not to be busted up in a variety of different ways and constantly smeared on the membrane of death. The membrane of death is like a waterfall of energy that is comprised of the last moments of your life, the last combination of possible events that could happen to you. And that last possible moment is like, your car driving over a cliff, or, you're dying in a hospital bed, or a bullet is entering your brain, or something like that. Those are all of the worst possibilities of things that could happen to you. The final denouement of your movie. That's not a very happy thing. So there's all these religious programs that tell you, like, oh, that's a very happy, good thing to look forward to, because then afterwards you're going to get to live in paradise, right? That is totally not the right approach. The effective or right approach is, because here's the deal, man. None of your cells want to die. So here's what is illogical on a cellular structure concept, to this religious program of what I'm calling the death cult. And the death cult has a variety of names. It's Christianity, and it's also Judaism, and it's also Islam, and it's also Hinduism, and it's anything that says that you have to die and release your physical body in order to achieve a transcendent mental state or a transcendent spiritual state. Because I am here to tell you that you can achieve a transcendent spiritual state by transforming your physical cellular structure and imbuing it with more energy and turning it into what I would call a higher organized structure, like a crystalline structure. If you just take a bunch of carbon atoms and you slap them together, you get coal. You do not get a crystalline structure. If you organize all of those atoms in a perfect lattice structure, then you get a diamond, and it's beautiful. We're supposed to be these beautiful, indestructible diamonds. Our bodies and the cellular structure of our cells and our actions through time and our thoughts that we emanate are all supposed to be part of this beautiful, impeccable structure. And impeccable traditionally means sinless, like without any flaw, but I don't mean like that you are a sinful, horrible person, like some people think you have to go to hell. It's more like being a perfect crystal, an unflawed diamond with no occlusions, just the perfect cellular version of you. And that's what we are supposed to be. In this cosmos, we are supposed to be these little tiny fractal shards of a lot larger whole, and we are supposed to be integrated with it perfectly. That's the crystalline structure. But we have technology that is being used presently that separates us from that structure. And so part of the technology, I've just described it, it's the death cult. It's any of these software programs that are running in your body individually and in your culture as a whole on the planet. Because these death cults took over the various energy centers, like of the earth, just like you have meridians on your body via acupuncture, there are meridians on Earth's surface, and there are special churches that were built on the meridians for a purpose in order to hijack what should be a celebration of life force energy and turn it into a story that is a narrative structure of the necessity of death. That's what the Christian narrative structure says, that you have to die in order to go to heaven, and that you go to heaven through this, religious figure that is known as Jesus Christ. And I am here to tell you that you can jump up and over that flawed software program. Again, not casting aspersions upon anybody's religion, because I understand you're here under great duress. And sometimes these narrative structures help hold people together. They help people to get through their challenges of their life trajectory. I understand the value of it. However, it is a set of training wheels, and it's something false and destructive and should be removed at this point, because you do not have to die. And I really want everyone to understand that on a profound level. I'm not a demonic temptress here, tempting you and saying, go away from your religious teachings and give up Jesus Christ and, do something else instead. I'm saying that that is a flawed program that leads you to destruction and tells you while you're being destroyed that it is necessary, and that it's necessary for your rebirth and creation. And I'm telling you, you can be recreated and transformed and reborn without having to die. And that's the experience that I had with this physical body, that the previous occupant of this body, the ego structure, was literally killed or murdered or destroyed. And I, as an abstract, non-earthly presence, vibrated the genes in a new format. And I created a new narrative structure story. It took time. It took a couple of years. And the new story is named Aurora. And this new story understands that it doesn't have to die to go to heaven. And heaven is a mental state. So all of the cells of your body don't want to have to die. They are like the workers in your, company. If you think of your body as like, a business, like a corporation, and you are the fancy CEO, and you come to work every day in your limousine, and you have all of your workers that work for you. If you die, if you are the ego and you die, all of your workers all of a sudden lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their jobs. They want to stay alive. They don't want you to die. And Earth is the origin of all of those little workers. Remember, you came here and you got a cellular structure and you ate a bunch of milk and then graduated to solid food, and eventually you grew a big adult-sized body, and it's all made of stuff from the stars, and it's all made of stuff from Earth. None of your body is technology. You didn't eat metal and become a cyborg. Everything that you ate came from Earth and the stars, and it's all alive. It's all part of life. And this life, that is your organic cellular body, does not want to die. I am giving you, like this, when I understood this, I literally was listening to the cells of my body. And it was a profound change from understanding how death is portrayed in this place and how most people feel about it as like, oh, a release of your body. Oh, I'm released from pain. Oh, I'm released from disease. Oh, I'm released from whatever backache, toothache, bunion, nearsightedness, or whatever that you consider to be a flaw or inadequacy of your body. And I really perceive the body as an artistic work in progress, and that we are each, not only musicians playing the instrument of our body, we are artists. We are creating our body. And you do not have to simply exist within a diseased or uncomfortable body. Just like look around at the planet. Our planet has the potential to be the most beautiful Edenic garden. And it's only because of technology that it is being degraded into, currently, that's why I say great duress. We are under so much pollution that is making it difficult for you to think clearly and for your cellular structure to achieve that crystalline level with no occlusions. That means the diamond was formed with no little specks because there was no pollution. But during the process of forming a diamond, there are great pressures, and the idea is that that is what forces out all of those impurities and makes it a perfectly clear crystal. That's what we're experiencing when I say this show is called Birth of a New Dimension, and we are coming out of the birth canal, and the pressures that are in the birth canal on a little baby's head, squeeze in its cranium as it comes out. This is what we are experiencing individually, as a planetary whole, and as a cosmos. We are all being born into a new level of consciousness that no longer requires or has to interact with the intermediary of technology. So think about all the things that I described here on this broadcast as impediments to your true connection to the stellar network. Not only any form of technology that we have around us, because these electromagnetic fields are inhibitory to true telepathy. Although they create a type of synthetic telepathy that's now been proven, it is not true telepathy. And just whatever, I don't want to get too much into a tangent, but when I lived in Woodstock, New York, before we had a cell phone tower, everyone there could be on the Psychic Friends network. We could just call out to one another and figure out where we were. We had wonderful synchronistic experiences. And as soon as a cell phone tower was put up in town, it's not just the convenience of being able to call a friend. Literally, we lost some of our psychic faculties. And that's just my little personal, apocryphal experience, just an anecdote, that's been going on this planet for about the past 10 or 15 years, a systematic reduction in true telepathy by inhibitory broadcast waves. And that's everything from your smart meter to cell phones to atmospheric disturbances like HARP and other weather modification aspects. And all of that is meant to inhibit your natural telepathy and your natural thought processes. So how do you ascend? How do we do this? How did we used to do this? We used to do it in a different way than we are going to do it now. Just brief pause. So before our genetic code was degraded and what is known as the sophisticated worldwide antediluvian or pre-flood culture known as Atlantis. But Atlantis was not just one continent that sunk beneath the sea like that old Donovan song. It was worldwide. It was across our whole globe, and the people that were part of that culture were sophisticated in the same way that if you live in New York City in this time and place, you are a sophisticated global citizen where you can buy any product from anywhere around the world, listen to any language, and have access to pretty much anything that is there. Before our planet was genetically degraded and quarantined or blockaded or imprisoned, with all this technology, we were like a sophisticated part of the rest of the culture of the cosmos. So that means sharing ideas and energy across space, sharing ideas and energy across time. And none of it had to be done through technology. All of it was done like the way that we can do telepathy, on a bridge of love. That's what I keep saying, that love is the gas that makes the car go. It is the electricity, quote unquote, or the juice in the wires that makes this real loving apparatus function. And the beings who use technology, to jump off the surface of their planet before they are fully formed and before they are fully sophisticated enough to know where to go and how to do this in a loving manner, what they are doing is distorting the time field. They are taking genetic material, and your genes are what ties together moment to moment at the Planck length. So your genes are not just the blueprints for your body or for the physical structure of who you are. They're also, the blueprint of your experience going through time. So when you degrade someone's genes, you actually degrade their experience through time. It's like changing the narrative structure of their life. And the beings that fly around through space and they're able to perform what you would consider to be very impressive feats, like being able to move a moon out of its orbit or entirely hollow out and excavate a planet and transform it into like a giant structure, like a giant internal city structure. Like think about New York City. It's actually a tiny island of basalt that has been, built up like a microchip, like 20, 50, 100 stories tall buildings on top of it. It's very impressive what technology has been able to do there. You can take a planet and you can do something very similar. You could turn it into a big, giant, quote unquote, New York City. But that is not very impressive when you start to understand that all of the power to do that came from raping and murdering and victimizing consciousness. So as opposed to a photon that flies off of a star and hits a chloroplast and becomes, love-making occurs, and then a being eats that food and broadcasts that energy back to the stellar network, that is not the type of unbroken circuit of consciousness that I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally like if you took energy from someone and you trapped their awareness in a false world, in a false reality, like uploaded their consciousness and their awareness into you could call it a dream, you could think of it like a virtual reality, you could think of it as a server or a mainframe. This is what these incredibly sophisticated technology using extraterrestrials are able to do. They hijack a person's consciousness, either in life or upon the moment of death, and upload them into a false reality, and then draw upon that energy for a very long time in order to run their world like batteries, okay? And that's trapped consciousness. That is not cool, and that the people who do that are not cool. So that is the type of technology and distortion of the time field that is inhibitory, that is a pathogen, that is preventing little tiny individual cells like you and me from effectively connecting with the larger overarching entity of consciousness, which is known as the stellar network and is really our own body on a grand macroscopic scale. And my contribution is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is the boundary dissolving tool that we can use to get across this boundary of technology. That if there is an inhibitory field that has been placed between you and your thought destination, like if you want to connect with the stars, but you can't because there's this stupid static field that is in between you, you can use the Flying Rainbow Lasagna to jump up and over and get around to, I'm thinking of the right word, circumvent that blockade. That this is how you can do it. So my own body is a template, and I learned how to jump up and over whatever neurological impairments were the result of the attack on my brain of this body that killed the former occupant. There's definitely, neurological deficits, but instead of being like, oh, there's a roadblock, I can't go any further, I jump up and over the roadblock and fly to where I need to go and then, set back down. We can do that through time also. If there is an impediment between you and the activity or experience you would like to experience, you don't have to say, oh, well, I'll just die or I'll just stop moving through time. You can say, I'm going to jump up and over. Or if you want to connect with a far distant level of awareness, that's really what the stars are. They are ourselves having transcended this level of experience, and they are moving through time at a very different rate, and they have also experienced different levels of time than we have experienced. So, like, they're at a different level of their own personal development, and we are not supposed to be separate from them and from that. We are supposed to be like a sophisticated, integrated whole. And in order to be part of that whole, the solution is not death. It is not to die. And I'm almost at the end of this broadcast. I know that there are a lot of narrative structure paradigms flying around right now that are all about basically, Earth being harvested. And I totally do not promote any of those as an agenda. And I would say caution, like red flags, warning, to watch out for that. Anybody who is promoting this agenda of your consciousness going to be harvested in whatever way it is described. If it is that you're going to die and you're going to go and live in Jesus's mansion in the sky, be aware, be cautious. If it is the conception or fantasy of a metal spaceship flies through the sky and with a tractor beam picks you up and brings you inside, and that's how you fly off of Earth, like, be cautious. If it is like a Christian rapture, floating upwards and then living in the clouds, watch out for that. If it is more of a new age, law of one raw type of material thing where you're going to be harvested, and usually it is portrayed as only the worthy. It's like you are the lucky ones, you're being harvested, and you get to go, to the good place. But it is really a trap of consciousness, like a whirlpool or an eddy where you circulate around endlessly in a cycle like a battery. And guess what? If you're anything like me, you've probably had enough of that in this level of experience, that you've had enough of doing the endless iterations where you die and circulate back to the beginning and try it again and again and again. And that I personally, and hope that you are also, am ready for the new level of experience where we get to drive down the road actually with our hands on the steering wheel and with our eyes looking out through the windshield and being able to fully perceive and control where we are going. If we had that level of control, utilizing our higher faculties, we could all ascend. Oh, P.S., this is how we did it back in Atlantis before our genes were degraded. Everybody ascended. So you came here, you assembled your physical material, you lived for however many hundreds or thousands of years you wanted to in a state of connection with the stellar network. You didn't have to eat physical food. You got all of your energy directly from the sun. You never had discomforts or diseases, certainly. You lived in a state of total vitality and cellular renewal. And when you ascend, your cells no longer have to die. So it's not just like, oh, your cells are constantly renewing at such a vast pace that, it's like the turnover is so fast that you don't die. None of your cells have to die anymore. And this is like we're almost at the end of the broadcast. It's a really great thing to end on. The planet herself, Earth right now, is ascending. And we are all individual cells, like little beings that live on her, just like I have little skin cells that live on me. And if my little skin cells want to come along with me for the magical mystery tour, then they're going to have to ascend along with me. And that means they don't die. So this is another transformation of our basic perception and presumptions. Like when I brush my hair in the morning, it's normal to have a bunch of dead hair fall out and be on my hairbrush. You scratch your finger or whatever, it is normal to see like, oh, look, I'm scratching off some dead skin cells from the outer layer of my epidermis. Our cells are constantly dying and being replaced, and that is considered normal and part of health. When we ascend, our cells no longer have to die. We no longer have to experience constantly losing our cells and then having to replace them. So, just think about all of the reasons why we have to do things like dust our house and vacuum our house and clean our clothing. I mean, a lot of it is because we are constantly shedding our dead skin cells and various effluvia onto the surfaces around us. And one of the changes that happens when we ascend, not only do we eat pure sunlight, but our cells don't die anymore. And this is the whole point. The body is like a corporation. Nobody wants to lose their job at the corporation. You want to keep on working. You're like, I still got plenty of life in me. I got great ideas. I can still add to the company. Don't want to have to retire. Like that's what the death of the cells are. And then, a new worker comes and replaces you. Imagine if the cells of your body didn't have to die or retire and be replaced by new incoming cells. Imagine if all of your cells that were experts at their job could keep on doing their job. And this is the intention of how we were created. So in ancient Atlantis, when a person was bored with their life and you were ready to get up to the next level, you gathered all of the energy that was necessary and were cheered on and helped by all of the people around you, like in a type of prayer or ceremony, like saying good luck on your journey. Everybody helped you to go on up. And the physical structure of your body had energy added to it, like, whoop, we are raising the energy until it changes state into a non-physical state. So when we change state, this is like when something burns, but this is burning with the flame of consciousness, not with the physical flame. This is the huge distinction. If you cremate a body right now in this time and place, you are causing it to change state, but the cells, they aren't alive, they aren't ascending. It's not really what we are supposed to be doing. We are supposed to be kindled with consciousness And so, of course, it takes a long time to become a virtuoso and to learn how to do this. That's why traditionally our bodies are made to last hundreds or thousands of years, as long as it takes to become an expert virtuoso and learn how to do this. And okay, so Earth is doing this right now. And I understand that you and I might not have hundreds or thousands of years in order to get our act together and do this. We are going to have to figure out how to do it. We are in the process of giving birth. And so part of it is this change in software program or mental approach. Like for me, when I had that insight that came maybe over the past 2 weeks, the idea that when our bodies ascend, we will no longer have dead skin cells. We will no longer have death as a basic part of our physical structure. We will exist in a new format. That was that was like a symptom or a clue that I was getting to a new level of development, because prior to that, I had been working according to, the basic presumption that my cellular metabolism would just increase, like, the turnover would just be so fast that you'd just keep on making new cells, new cells, new cells. But this was really something new, the idea that you don't have to keep on having your cells die. Of course not. Death doesn't exist anymore. All of your cells are expert musicians. You are an expert musician, and you are submerged within an expert symphony surrounded by all of these other expert musicians. So there is no right or wrong way to do this. We are innovating in the moment. When I say we don't have hundreds or thousands of years to figure it out, what used to happen in Atlantis was individual ascension. Like the rest of the people were there, and then, a couple of athletes would make their journey and they would fly off on the soul migration. We are all doing the soul migration together. So we cannot simply return to our old habits, rather, of what we did in a previous time and place. We have to really innovate. And jazz musicians innovate. They might say, like, hey, I played this song this way last time. I'm going to play it a little different this time. The tempo will be a little different. Or maybe I'll make this note a sharp or a flat or something interesting to change it up a little bit. This is what we need to do. So each one of us and the planet together as a whole, we are right now innovating on this beautiful, improvisational jazz. And we're also working within a format. Jazz is not just, totally free. It is the end of this particular broadcast, but not the end of this journey. Please continue to jazz improv and dance like a flying rainbow lasagna with your own DNA as the planet is ascending. Thank you.